Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Microsoft Azure Cloud Adoption. I hope you can all hear me well. My name is Shalini, and I am the Alliance Lead for Cloudmania. So our presenters today will be Patrick Okello, our TCM from Microsoft. We have from the Copycat team, Keshav Kumar, the head of cloud practice, and Alfred, who will talk about the Azure migration scenarios and Azure Backup. Evans, who is also on the call, our business group lead, will take you through some customer scenarios. I will kindly also, if you can put your mic on mute during the presentation. So in today's session, we'll take you through an introduction to Copycat and Microsoft Azure, managing your OPEX and CAPEX in your cloud migration, how to enable digital transformation with Microsoft Azure, and some migration scenarios. So this session will be recorded. We'd love to hear from you, so you can either drop down your questions in the chat section, or you can unmute yourself at the end of the presentation. For those of you just joining us, welcome to our webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. Patrick, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you again, customers and different partners that we have that have joined us for this webinar today. We really do appreciate the time you've made for this webinar. It's going to be a 1-hour webinar, so I'll try to be to the point as quick as possible so that we have enough time running through the Q&As that will be coming our way. So just quickly moving to the first slide. We're basically going to talk about Microsoft Azure today, and a platform built for our businesses across the different regions that we cover. I'll say globally, we have quite a number of customers using the platform. So I would basically say, what Azure basically does is, other than going into the real definition of what it is, it's just basically a platform where you can build different apps, use the infrastructure there, and then as you continue engaging, you basically start seeing that there's basically a lot that you're going to benefit from. Move back, you're moving too fast. Move my slide back. Hold on, slide back. So the Azure basically gives you a growing collection of integrated cloud services, which are all designed to support the diverse needs for your businesses. And this is purely focusing on customers. And we as Microsoft, together with Cloudmania and Copycat, are here to take you through that journey. It's basically a reliable platform that can help you move faster, achieve more, and also save money. And we're going to look at some of those key areas that we are going to highlight as we continue, as we progress through this webinar. So, like I mentioned earlier on, it's an open and flexible platform where you can rapidly build, deploy, manage, and secure applications on premise, on cloud, or you can actually have what we call a hybrid, where you can have you're securing both your on-premise and cloud, having a mix of both. So you'll be able to save and also ensure that your business is actually deriving value from it. Yeah. So we can move ahead to the next slide just quickly here. Transforming IT addresses new questions. I think you can see there's clearly a need for everyone to work together towards transforming our IT environment. And referencing back to what the pandemic has done, the pandemic has really proved to us that, if we do not transform, then our businesses may not be able to survive. So our job together with you, the business leaders in your different organizations, is to walk the journey with you, walk the transformation journey with you, to help you take advantage of the new innovations that give the answers to some of the questions that arise. So we're looking at across all these areas, we're looking at from an infra, data, apps, devices. You need to transform IT to deliver the business services that enables and ensure that it improves your business values in your entire organization. So which is very, very key. So Organizations need to deliver a consistent, great user experience from anywhere, no matter the device. So you're looking at using any device for you to be able to join meetings. Like now we're in a Teams webinar. We are basically speaking and reaching out, sharing information across across different countries, and yet we're actually in one place. Some of us are working from home, some of us are in the offices, and we are still able to speak to each other. So from an up front, if you're looking at the customers, or you're looking at yourselves, where you're working with partners like the likes of Copycat that are into developing apps, the cloud has basically given us an agile platform for us to be able to derive that, push apps to where they should be, and also ensure that they are always available for our customers. Then from a data front, we are looking at big data, small data, all data. You must make it easier for everyone to access and perform analytics on any data. And that is where the cloud comes in. You're looking at any size, you're performing data analytics from anywhere. And that's the flexibility that most organizations and businesses are looking at. And then also transforming your infrastructure from managing servers by having servers in a data center. You're looking at an infrastructure that can scale as and when you need it. And that is where Azure comes into play. So I would say that is those are some of the key areas that we'll look at. Did I mention that? I think okay, clearly, okay, what I just ran through clearly shows what is on the deck here. Mobility, apps, big data, and cloud. This is where we're looking at scalability. What can we do with the lots of data that we are collecting? Big, small, no matter what size. Agility on apps, and also mobility, where you can access data from anywhere that you may need, or wherever you are. Moving ahead, we are looking at the on-premise versus Azure. So these are a number of questions that are always asked. How can I compare this? What would actually make me drive moving from my on-premise infrastructure onto Azure? Why should I consider moving to the cloud? So quick one, we're looking at the initial investment. CapEx, you're looking at buying servers, or each and every 3 or 4 years, you're looking at doing server refreshes. Is this something that you need to do as and when, or all the time when there is need for a refresh? And the need that will be required for it to even just do a refresh is probably do some migrations, which may affect actually business continuity and availability of apps that you are basically moving from one server to another. Yeah. From an operational cost, you are looking at, you need to have basically you're looking at setting up a whole data center. And data centers come with costs like electricity, rent, administrative costs to also keep those data centers up and running. From a security perspective, we need to keep them safe and protect them from any intruders that may come. From a cyber security perspective, and from a physical perspective, yeah. The licensing costs also come into play. Each and every time you refresh a server, you're looking at investing in buying licenses. Licenses is not only limited to the operating system. You're also looking at the virtualization platform that you're going to use. Are you going to use VMware? Are you going to use Hyper-V? Are you going to use Zen server? So all that comes into play. Now it comes to fixed capacity. On-premise will not give you, when you're purchasing, you don't purchase with flexibility. If you're basically sizing a server, you're sizing a server in such a way that it meets certain specifications. Basically buying a 64 terabyte server with this kind of storage, you're looking at certain processor speeds, which are actually fixed. But with the cloud, this creates flexibility. As we move on, you'll see where this comes into play. Maintenance and administrative costs, we've mentioned that you need to maintain and also ensure that the data centers are running. Now we have extra investments for redundancy. Redundancy meaning we're looking at setting up DR sites for our data centers to ensure that they're reliable. And that is an extra investment, which may cost as much as your production site where you're actually running your applications. Then we move into extra costs for high availability. Even within the data centers itself, you're looking at setting up 2 or 3 servers to ensure that the servers are always highly available. In case one server fails, applications are still accessible across other servers. And then there is an extra investment for high security. Let's start looking at how much from a physical and from an application layer perspective. You're looking at investing in security on that. Investing investing highly on security for that, because you're looking at ensuring that your environmental applications are well protected. Now let's see what Azure brings to us. Azure brings no initial investment, so it's purely OpEx. You only need to provision as and when you need. No operational costs, because the costs are being taken care of by Microsoft. Most of the applications that you're provisioning, the operating systems already come with licenses, which comes with very cheap, because it's purely running on it's a subscription-based model. Flexibility, meaning you can always increase resources as and when you need, or reduce as and when you need, or it's flexible enough to actually adjust based on need. So we have no maintenance costs, because these are maintenance costs. These are maintenance costs that are being basically managed by the vendor himself. So Microsoft will managing this. Then we have a fully redundant platform for you to ensure that your applications are highly available. DR sites are taken care of. So as you provision, and based on how you're engaging with your customer, you can provision DR sites for them from a geological perspective. So we then look at high availability here. High availability again comes down that most applications will be highly available based on the design itself. So this is something you can take on. And then if there is high investment in security, we need customers to trust the public cloud. So Microsoft has invested quite a bit on securing these platforms. As we move ahead, why consider the cloud? Again, we move back to why we should consider the cloud. Why should I consider moving to Azure? First, I'll look at 3 key areas. There are basically three fundamental business drivers that will drive you to why you should consider the cloud. You're looking at speed, scale, and economics. What is speed? Speed, I'm meaning, if I need a server right now, how long would it take me to provision one? Say if there's a business need that probably is an application needed by some that needs to be developed and users need to test. How long will that take me to provision? Do I have to go through a procurement process, or should I just go ahead and provision a server on the cloud? This makes it very easy when you're running this on the cloud. In no time, you have cloud servers up and running, and then your team are basically working on it and ensuring that customers or your end user is actually using these applications. Now let's come down to scale. Scale, we are looking at an infinite set of computing resources where applications can be used across at different scales as and when you need. You can set up servers and applications in such a way that resources are consumed based on demand. If you have an application where there are some peak hours and there are low peak hours, so the server will always scale based on demand. So that is where scale comes into play. And this manages complexity. Now from economics, you consume only what you need. Why would I invest in a 64 terabyte server and yet probably my first 2 or 3 months or 1 or 2 or 6 years, I mean, maybe the first 2 or 3 years, I probably only need half of that storage. So you only pay for what you need. So from an economics perspective, you're purely operating on OpEx and you only consume what you need. So I would say these are the key areas that basically help us guide our customers or work with you to justify why you should move to the cloud. I would say from me, that is basically it from me. I would basically hand back the discussion to Shalini for the next presenter. I'll once again introduce myself. My name is Patrick Okello. I am the channel sales manager looking after Azure in both East and Southern Africa, supporting the channel that is looking after working with Copycat, Cloudmania, and other partners within the region. But I'm very grateful that you made time for the call again for this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for this insightful discussion. The next presenter will be Keshav, so I'll let the Copycat team take over. Thank you.
Thanks, Shalini. Can you just move this slide a bit? And good morning, everyone. I am Keshav Kumar, and I handle cloud practice within Copycat Group. And I welcome you all and thank you all as well for joining this webinar. And thanks a lot, Patrick, as well, for setting up the introduction, how Azure is compared vis-a-vis on-prem setup and why a customer should look out for Azure. So to proceed ahead further, let me just give you a glance of Copycat, where we have started way back in 1984. So we have got presence in this East Africa market for the last 37 years. And we have got local presence in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. So when we started our business, it was predominantly a courier business, office automation. We are still doing that, but we always wanted to lead with emerging technologies. And all these years, why we have been into this market, primarily because we engage with the customer, try to understand where the emerging technologies are, and now we are focusing on cloud and some other services to lead with in this East Africa market. So this is in a nutshell what Copycat is all about. So we have got a relationship with our existing clients from the last 37 years, and we also want to evolve because change is inevitable. And if we have to keep performing and keep reaching out to our customers, give them emerging technologies, how we can help them reduce their TCO in whatever manner we can. It helps us create a bond with the customer and provide them a value add as well. So this is how we want to lead in this market as well. And now we are embarking on emerging technologies such as cloud, managed services, security services. And we have partnered with Cloudmania for our Azure journey for our customers. Yeah, Salini, you can move to the next slide, please. Yes. So now it comes why a customer should choose Copycat and Microsoft Azure. So as I said, we have got a regional presence. We have been in this market for the last 37 years, and we have got presence of Copycat Azure consultants. So we have got certified solution architects, cloud engineers who are available round the clock according to the client's feasibility. So we are flexible. We are not adamant that we will support our customers at a particular time of a day. So we are flexible, and we also understand that once we start engaging with the customer, taking their pain points, mitigating it, resolving it, it gives us a kick. Yes, we have done something good for the customer so that they can sleep without any worry. So we are flexible enough. We are not adamant and say that we work particularly in a particular time of a day. We can reach out to the customer whenever they feel they have an issue, and we have been doing it. It is not only that we have started inculcating this practice now. We have been doing it. We have been to our customer places at 11 in the night, 12 in the night, 1, 2, whenever a customer is in need of. So we have got the flexibility. We have got the process maturity as well. So we have got tools and templates for successful delivery. We have been doing it for the last 37 years in different IT services, and we are replicating it for Azure cloud services as well. So we have got process maturity. As we said, we have got regional presence. We have got certified pool of Azure architects, those who have got experience and they have implemented Azure solutions at various customer places. They have gone through all these iterations, how, and we generally recommend to a customer what they should go for to optimize their Azure resources as well, because we do understand it is not like this. If we have given you Azure subscription, deployed some of your services on Azure, our work gets over. It is not like this. We keep engaging with the customer, try to optimize their environment as well, because as I said, we want to lead as an example that we are sitting in this environment. So we have got the flexibility, process maturity, and we have got the technology as well. And whenever we engage with our customers, we do use industry best practices which are suitable for a particular service to be deployed at a customer place, and we always focus on maintaining relationship, and we have a clearly defined escalation matrix so that if something goes wrong, you should be aware where you have to connect and with whom you have to connect, so that all these resolutions should be done at as early as possible, and customers should not have any pain in engaging with us. So that is why you should choose Copycat together with Microsoft Azure for this region. Yeah, Shalini, you can move ahead. So before we move through, just some of the facts and figures pertaining to Kenya market. So as per Frost and Sullivan, Kenya market, when it comes to infrastructure as a service, is going to clock $700 million by 2025. So what exactly it means? It means that most of the customers, whether it is from enterprise segment or any industry verticals, They are looking for cloud services. Why are they looking for these cloud services? As Patrick has already mentioned in his session, that it gives you a lever to reduce your cost. You can move from a capex expenditure to a opex kind of model. Then it has got reliability and scalability. During this pandemic, we have engaged with multiple customers, and we have felt the pain those customers have when they say that my server capacity is full or my storage capacity is full and I'm looking for some hardware stuff, and they have to wait for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months down the line to get those new hardware equipments. But it is not the case when it comes to Microsoft Azure. So they can have it on their fingertips. They can provision virtual machines. They can provision storage as per the demand of the solution. They can do it quite fast, and they can scale as well, which Patrick has already mentioned, during the offload hours and during the peak load hours. So prime example is I can give, if suppose Amazon.com, when they come up with any big billion days, the number of users who are going to hit their website, it increases tremendously. So how they are going to use it? So they are scaling it on demand so that customer does not feel any degradation in the performance. So all these things are getting achieved by cloud computing, and Azure is one of the leading platforms when it comes to in the globe, and they have got more than 60 plus regions across globe. You customers can deploy their application based on the proximity of the customer, so that they should have a lower latency and they should not have a performance issue when they ask their clients to use those applications, or they want to use their applications anywhere from anywhere in the globe. So these are some of the market trends. As I said, it is going to increase, and most of the customers are using it for their competitive advantage, because they are also migrating from a capex model to an opex model. So it gives a it reduces their TCOs. As I said, dollar saved is dollar earned. So that is why they are making use of this cloud computing, and these are some of the figures which we cannot even deny as well. It means that your customers are preferring cloud computing so that they can make use of this in their IT transformational journey. Yeah, Shalini, you can move ahead to the next slide. Yes. So as Patrick was mentioning, how on-premise is compared with Microsoft Azure. So so he said about capex model, transactional cost, and all these aspects. But still, customers sometimes have some challenges. They are not sure which application should I move to cloud. What should be my migration strategy? How will I be connecting to the cloud? How security aspects are taken into picture when it comes to Microsoft Azure. So all these challenges are real. Customers do ask these questions. So that is what Copycat comes into picture. So we engage with the customer, and when we create a roadmap, cloud roadmap for them, or Microsoft Azure adoption journey, we try to understand what are the services they have, or we try to understand their current IT landscape. And then on the basis of that, we create a plan, what they should do in a stepwise manner, because we do understand the best way to move to cloud is to start small and then scale. So these are some of the challenges, but they should not be worried about. If I take security and cloud, you must be knowing it as well, that when we architect any solution on Microsoft Azure, we start taking security consideration from the subnet level to the outer perimeter as well. So all these things are taken into consideration, and as I said in the earlier deck as well, that when we engage with the customer, it is not a one-time engagement where we will migrate your applications to cloud. In a step manner, we will create a roadmap for you. But we engage again, we will keep engaging with you so that we can optimize it further, so that it really gives you a good benefit in a long journey when you adopt cloud, per se Microsoft Azure. Yeah, yes, Alini, you can move to the next slide, please. So we will talk about some of the Azure workloads in this session, and yeah, yes, Alini, you can move next. So as I was talking about cloud migration, so it is not it is not a what to say a one-time activity, or it is not a one-shot event where we'll say, okay, we are migrating to cloud and this is how we will do it. So generally, as I said, when we engage with the customer, we try to understand their current IT landscape. So we'll do the assessment of their environment. We try to explore how their application portfolio looks like, how their applications are created, in the sense whether they are two-tier applications or three-tier applications, how their dependencies are. Have they implemented backup strategy? Have they implemented DR strategy? So all this exploration works goes during our planning phase, where we understand holistically what their IT landscape is all about. So once we understand that, then we will take a step-by-step approach when we do the assessment. Suppose a customer has 15 virtual machines or 20 virtual machines. We do the assessment, and in Microsoft Azure, there is a service called Azure Migrate, which I think Evans will also take you through in his session forward. So he will touch upon those services. So Azure Migrate is a service where we'll do the assessment of the environment. Suppose out of your 15 virtual machines, once assessment has been done, we came to know that, okay, 10 machines are good to go on Azure. So it can be lift and shift. 3 machines or 3 virtual machines can be migrated to Azure, but with some conditions. So and 2 of them cannot be migrated. They are not cloud native applications. So we do have those understanding. We do the complete assessment, and on the basis of that, we modernize whether a rehost is needed, whether it is lift and shift, creating exact infrastructure on cloud and then shifting the application, or we need to replatform. Replatform is basically when we are lifting and shifting with an optimization, how we can optimize the architecture. So we do all these aspects into consideration before we migrate any particular workload or application on cloud. So even after doing the analysis that this is what strategy modernization technique we will use, we will go ahead with a POC environment, so that we can align customers as well, that whatever is their desired state, the application is running as per the desired state of the customer once they migrate to Azure. So once this POC gets successful, then actual migration starts. So we will take care of movement of infra, then application and data to the cloud, and then the actual migration happens, and that too in a step-by-step manner when we start migrating their applications workload one by one. And during all this process, we have a monitoring tool to keep monitoring the movement migration, so that customer should not have any hiccups when going for this migration. We will keep optimizing these migration services as well, and we will keep supporting the customer so that it becomes a seamless journey for them when we migrate some of the applications for them on Azure. And the service which Microsoft provides to do this is Azure Migrate. Customers can also use third-party migration tools which are available on Microsoft Azure Marketplace. It could be Carbonite or anyone else based on the customer's preference. They can do that. Yes, Alini, you can move to the next slide, please. Yes. So we have interacted with multiple customers in this market, and we still feel business continuity and data protection is a good opportunity for most of the customers. Because they have not thought about it much, because they generally have been backing up their data on tapes and then managing it on premise, which is I do understand it is a less costly affair, but when you have backup on cloud or on Azure, it is even less expensive than what you have been doing on tape drives, or you are backing up on your on-premise setup. It is easy. So we will go there in a minute, but let me take you through some of the facts and figures which talks about the risk of being unprotected. No, you can. Yes, you can keep it. You can keep it. One slide up, Shalini. You have gone fast. Slide number 12. Yes. So the risk associated with being unprotected in today's business climate are more serious than ever before. As you can see, some of the data which has been collated by IDC survey, though it is old data, but it is relevant, that for Fortune 1000 companies in February 2015, they did some analysis and they said that the total cost of unplanned downtime was around about 1.25 to $2.5 billion. And it takes $7,900 per minute if their applications are down. And it takes close to 2 hours for them to fall back or fail over to their primary data center. So these are the numbers which we have to think upon, because this, though it is an old data, but still it is relevant that customer has to focus on business continuity and data protection going forward. And Azure provides it, as I can say, it is very competitive solution when it comes to Microsoft Azure, and it gives a good lever for the customer as well. Yes, Aline, you can move to the next slide. Yes, so some of the common enterprise challenges we have mentioned, limiting downtime. See, line of business applications are the lifeblood of modern enterprise, and just a minute of downtime is far too long. So companies that want to succeed do everything in their power to achieve 99.9999% of availability and uptime. They want to reduce their cost because, as I have told earlier as well, a dollar saved is dollar earned. And another enterprise challenge is that managing complexities. Navigating some modern IT environments can be like making your way through a primary, secondary, or a tertiary data center, then DR protocols, heterogeneous operating environments, co-location facilities, and number of tool sets as well. So it's a lot to keep track of. Enterprises often look for ways to untangle the knot in 21st century. And then they have to ensure compliances as well. And they have to scale their application, mission critical applications. So these are some of the common enterprise challenges, and scaling took a hit during this pandemic as well. So these are some of the challenges, and how Microsoft enables you to overcome these common enterprise challenges is one of the services called Backup. So Shalini, you can proceed ahead. Yes. So Backup is a crucial step in protecting your business's most valuable asset, that is data. With Azure Backup, as I have said earlier, it lowers the cost associated with already inexpensive backup. So it gives you a model where you can have anywhere access to your data from nearly any device. So you can have it, and you don't have to invest too much of manpower to managing those backups, which you have been doing it on-premise setup. So what are the key points when you take a Azure Backup? That it shifts you from CapEx to OpEx. It moves current backup process to the cloud, and you can leverage the scale of Azure. So it is, and you can also protect your remote offices and branch locations without the complexity of in-house management. So you can do that. And Shalini, you can move to the next slide. And the Azure service is called Azure Backup. So this is basically a reference architecture of Azure Backup. So generally what happens, you can, based on your number of servers or workstations, Backup Mars agent it gets deployed on your server, and then accordingly backup of the data happens at the Azure Recovery Services Vault. And once a backup happens, that also you can suggest whether you want to go for a LRS, locally redundant storage, or geo redundant storage. When it comes to locally redundant storage, your backed up data, 3 copies of the backed up data is stored in the same data center of Azure. But when you go for a GRS storage, it gets backed up in different region. So it clearly helps you to make your backed up data highly available when you go for GRS storage. So this is just a reference architecture. This is the architecture we generally follow when a client has a Windows application running on their virtualized environment. When they have a Linux environment, there is some other service which is called MABS, Microsoft Azure Backup Service Server. So we create a server and then we backed up those data to Azure. So customer have, though they don't have to go into complexity of in-house management, they can use this, they can access this data anywhere from any device, and they can grant access to any number of users. So there's so any number of users pertaining to their organization. So it is one of the very reliable solution for Microsoft Azure, which every customer should make use of, so that whatever expenses they are incurring right now on their on-premise backup with their in-house in-house management, they can move to Azure Backup, and it's a really beautiful solutions to have. Yes, Shalini, you can move to the next slide. Yes, Shalini, you can move to the next slide. Yes. So in terms of business, no, you can move up. Yes, thank you. So when it comes to business continuity, there's another service from Microsoft, which is DR as a service. So with Azure, you have got complete protection from malicious insiders, human error, natural disaster, or whatever you cannot think of. So rest assured that if an app, a server, or a data center fails, Azure is there to replicate the workload in the cloud, and you can get back to business as usual. So it eliminates capex, as Patrick was also mentioning in his session. So you get the freedom you deserve. Microsoft does not force you to maintain any secondary site infrastructure. So you can back up, you can create a disaster recovery for your on-premise setup, or if you have on cloud, then you can create a DR site on Azure as well. So it gives you a lever to make use of this disaster recovery from Azure. It is highly affordable, and why it is highly affordable is that you don't have to invest again. We will take it through in the next slides, where you will come to know how DR solution on Azure is highly beneficial for you if you are thinking about DR on cloud. So Shalini, you can move to the next deck. So this is the reference architecture. I will just take you through what exactly happens in a disaster recovery on Azure. So you have an on-premise setup, and you want to create a DR for that. So generally what happens, there is a synchronization replication of your storage in the sense data. So data gets replicated onto your target Azure environment, nothing else. So when your primary data center goes down, then only failover happens, and the virtual machines on Azure starts kicking in based on your RTO and RPO, and then your applications can route to Azure data center as a DR. And once your primary DR is up, you can always fall back to your primary data center. So in that case, what is exactly happened is that you didn't have to maintain active site. Whatever you have been doing on your on-premise setup now, that if you have to go for a DR site, you will create a primary, and then you will create a secondary. You will incur cost at both the places, and then you will keep it active or active passive, but you have incurred cost. But when it comes to DR on Azure, it is just a replication of storage, your system applications into a cache storage account in Azure. And once your primary PR is down, then only virtual machines on Azure start kicking in, and then your applications can fail over. And once it fall back, all the applications or virtual machines which have been created in Azure can be shut down. So it drastically reduces your cost. You don't have to worry about it. And another view, and then the service which is being done on Azure for disaster recovery is called Azure Site Recovery, ASR. And one of the beautiful thing about ASR is that if you have got on-premise data center and you have got a DR on-premise as well, in that case as well, you can use ASR, Azure Site Recovery, as a service to fail over to your DR site on-prem. So you don't have to invest on product. It is a service. When you have used it as a service, you have to pay for the license of this ASR tool. That's it. So yes, Shalini, you can move to the next slide. Yes, so as you can see, as I have mentioned earlier as well, that when you go for a traditional DR setup, you have to incur cost 2 times what you have been incurring on your on-premise setup right now. But when you go on Azure, it really saves you cost of around about 65 to 80% based on the workloads and what RTO and RPOs you have defined for your DR service to be kicking. Because here in Azure, we are not setting up the infrastructure site again. We are just replicating the data, and once your primary is down, then virtual machine in your DS site on Azure kicks in, and then data, all the applications can fail over there. And once your primary is up, you can fall back and your virtual machines on Azure can be put on shutdown mode. So it really saves your cost. So that is the beauty of disaster recovery on Azure, and the service is called Azure Site Recovery. Yeah, Shalini, I think that is done from my end. You can take it through. Alfred will take us through the dev test environment on Azure.
Good morning, all. I hope I'm audible. I'll be taking you guys through the Azure Dev Test Labs. So I can start with a scenario for, let's say, for a company. Let's say a company that deals with.
Sorry, Alfred. Sorry to interrupt. Before Alfred starts, Alfred is one of our pre-sales Azure expert, and then he will take you through. Yeah, Alfred, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, let's say a company that deals with the, let's say, development of websites and maybe development of applications. For you to develop these websites and applications, you need to have a proper infrastructure to come up with these websites and applications. So normally what, let's say you have several developers that usually write their code on virtual machines, and also they need to run they need to machines to run their application so that they can put it on test with their clients and the rest. So 65% of developers say it is too complicated and time consuming to get development and testing resources. So this one is the organization with so much income is the one that determines if the developers can get these resources. If an organization is, I think maybe if it's a startup, they will not be able to get these resources to do their dev test. And also 10% of average utilization of dedicated dev test infrastructures is currently the one that these dev test teams will be using. So let's say they are running these applications, and then when they are done, the servers will go, they will not be used forever unless there is any need for them to do a dev test again. So those servers will remain there without running. So these the challenges of running your environment on-prem as opposed to using Azure is maybe you have compromised agility. Some companies have limited budgets; they cannot afford to test their application, and also software licensing is also an issue when it comes to maybe getting something like Windows license, VMware license, and the rest. And then the resources, contentions with the VMs, and realistic scale test often is also challenging. This means that when a developer wants to test this application, it becomes very hard since the resources he's trying to use is very limiting. And also, we have also procurement deals. This involves the process of acquiring, of maybe submitting the claim to the management so that they can approve on the purchase of servers and the application that the developers will be using for their dev test environments. Shalini, you can move to the next slide. Okay, so for Microsoft has come up with a service called Azure Dev Test Labs. So this what Azure Dev Test Lab is it enables developers to efficiently manage virtual machines and platform as a service resources without waiting for approvals. These approvals are from management. They must take time because of budget constraints and the rest. So on Azure Dev Test, you can test the latest version of your application by quickly provisioning environments using reusable templates and artifacts like Visual Studio's Node, and easily integrate it with your DevOps pipeline, or create pre-provision environments for training and demos. So why should an organization look on Azure Dev Test as a way to come up with the applications and maybe if they want to create our websites and the rest? So one of the key functions on why we should use Azure Dev Test is Azure Dev Test Labs lets you pre-provision environments to develop and test applications. You just need to claim your applications on the last goods build and start working on it. Or you can use containers for even faster linear environment creations. These containers can also be run on Kubernetes that you can use to come up with your final applications. Point number 2 is you have reusable environments. So this means that the moment you create an environment, next time when maybe you need to create another environment with the same functionality, you don't need to go through the hassle of creating the same infrastructure. Just there is a function called ARM template that you download after creating an environment. This is an reusable template you can use for the next deployment of maybe your test and development infrastructure. The second point is it's a worry-free self-service. This means that Dev Test Labs enables your developers and testers to quickly and easily create infrastructure as a service VMs and also platform as a service resources by using set of pre-configured resources. These are the ones that we have just mentioned, the ARM templates. And also okay, another key feature of Azure DevOps is you can use infrastructure as a service and platform as a service resources. This means that you can spin resources such as Azure Service Fabric clusters or SharePoint farms by using resource manager templates. The templates come from the public environment repository or connect the lab to your own Git repository. This can be maybe something like GitHub and Azure DevOps. You can also spin up an empty resource group by using a resource manager template to explore Azure within your context of your lab. So it's very, very easy to come up with a resource for you to conduct your development and testing environment. The last function that can companies should consider using Azure Dev Test is you can integrate with your existing toolchain. By using pre-made plugins or the APIs to create development or testing environments directly from your preferred continuous integration tool, CI tools, integrated development environment IDEs, or automated release pipeline. You can also use the comprehensive command line that comes with it on Azure, on the Azure cloud. Next, please. Next slide, please, Shalini. Okay, so this is one of the scenarios of maybe of a company that maybe uses Azure Dev Test to conduct their dev test of the application and maybe the application that they run on their infrastructure. So you can see how simple it is. This maybe on the first section is you can find maybe a system admin that has full rights on the Azure cloud. He's in charge of spinning up various virtual machines. He goes and this service, he spins up a dev test lab. So when he or she is spinning up the dev test lab, he's given a set of features. They are called dev test lab features. So within these features, he can choose the amount of claimable machines. The claimable machines are the ones that will be assigned to the developers so that they can log in, do their programming there, install their dependency and the rest. So the admin configures the number of machines as compared to the developers that exist in the company. And also the best thing about Azure Dev Test, you can also configure auto shutdown. This one is to reduce on the costing that maybe Microsoft will charge you when you run it 24/7. So you can say, like, maybe we usually work from 8 to 5, then from 5 you can automatically shut down this machine so that you don't incur more costs. Now, after configuring the auto shutdown feature, you can also specify the artifacts. Artifacts means that these are the dependency that we install on the operating system that all developers require for them to do their development work. So this may include something like .NET. It can be something like VS Code that they use for doing their development. So after you have specified that, you can also download the ARM template. This one will assist you so that next time you don't have to go all through this deployment. So you just download it to your machine, and then next time, maybe when there is a need to come up with an infrastructure, you just provision that ARM, and then in something like 5 seconds it will be done. So on the next, the claimable machines are assigned to the developers. Then the developers will write their code. And also the best thing about Azure Dev Test, it's automatically connect. You can connect directly to either Azure DevOps or GitHub. So the developers will work on their various sections, and then they will commit their changes to GitHub or Azure DevOps, so that they have a single repository where they can get their code. This is very important, especially maybe a developer leaves the company and you want to refer to something. You don't need to go back to the developer, because the code is not hosted on this machine. It will be hosted on the Azure machine. So they will be submitted to GitHub. Everything will appear on GitHub or Azure DevOps. Next slide, please, Shalini. Now, after the code has been submitted to GitHub or Azure DevOps, now is the time that the developers need to test their code, their code, if it's working correctly, or if the users will be experiencing any issue while connecting to their applications and the rest. Now there is a service called Azure load testing. It's a new service that came up recently. This service is a fully managed Azure service that enables developers and testers to generate high-scale load with custom Apache JavaScript and actionable insights to catch and fix performance bottlenecks at scale. So this means that JavaScript is just a collection of code that developers usually write. Then they will specify, maybe they want this number of concurrent sessions to go to their application, so that they can test how much an application can be able to handle without going down. So JavaScript, you can specify 1,000 session and the rest. So just specify, and then you trigger it. You trigger it against your application. So your application can be on app service. App service is a service from Azure that allows you to spin websites and the rest at a very quick way. So you can spin it up on Azure on app service. You can also do it on Kubernetes. Maybe your developers are working on an application that runs on Docker. You can trigger it on a Kubernetes cluster. Then on the same you can also check on the app insights. The moment you trigger it on this application, you can be able to check this application is running maybe at 1,000 concurrent session. It will be able to handle. Over that one, it will not be able to handle. Also, the JavaScript also supports virtual machines and Azure SQL Server. These are the databases. Maybe your application usually deals with a lot of data, and you need to test how much data that is produced during the running of the application and the rest. So after you have tested, the JScript will be able to give you a matrix on the performance, and then you can gauge like how much resources do I require for me to run this application. And then after the testing, you can also pre-provision your actual production environment to be the same way as so that the users are not impacted in terms of surfing your website. I think that's it for me. Maybe we can go to the next presenter.
Okay. Thanks, Alfred. Hi, everyone. My name is Evans. I'm the business group lead for Microsoft Azure from Cloudmania. And we've worked with Copycat and other different partners in different countries across Africa to be able to deliver these different solutions for specific customers. Now, what I'm going to quickly talk about, by the way, sorry, for the sake of time, I'm gonna rush into it so that we give people time to have a Q&A session. But essentially, what I want to talk about is the relevance of Microsoft Azure to our growing market, right, to our developing countries, because essentially how we can consume the technology will affect our market. So we have to design this technology based on the kind of needs that we have or the kind of requests that we see in the market, right? Now, to reiterate what Patrick had already mentioned before, as well as Kesho, that whole comparison between on-premise and cloud. Normally, I get this question of, is cloud expensive? Is it cheap? And I answer by saying cloud is actually affordable. And the reason why it's affordable is that if you look from the on-premise perspective, right, you will buy all this licensing that you've already heard that Kesho spoke about, Alfred spoke about, Patrick spoke about. And then you would have the implementation customization cost. You'd have to buy hardware. You have to employ people to actually deal with it, as well as installation of security, etc. Right? However, the side or the hidden side that we do not look at, right, would be the ongoing costs, like things like electricity, physical security, floor space, cooling, performance tuning, maintenance, and things like backup power, right? These are hidden costs that come with on-premises deployment or operation. However, if you move to cloud, you're looking to only have subscription fees, right? Implementation, customization, and training, whereby the ongoing cost will still be the same. On top of that, you will not have any capital expenditure, right? So this actually says a lot in terms of how can we consume cloud services, how can we consume the technology as a developing market, and how can we center our solutions around that. So what is the opportunity or what is the challenge here? Basically, the businesses, different businesses, they have this increasing pressure on whatever infrastructure that they have, right, to scale fast with minimum cost and very, very minimum risk. Meaning, if you're planning a budget, then whatever you're going to do next should be within that budget. But Patrick had already mentioned, and he spoke about how the pandemic actually changed how we budget for our operations in different companies and organizations, right? So that is where the opportunity is, meaning, with cloud, you can actually scale as fast as possible. You can, scale down, up, however you want, based on actual data, meaning what is the demand that I have right now, then let me scale accordingly, right? What is the cost? You pay exactly for what you need when you need it. And what is the risk? Risk is right next to zero, because once you don't need something, you did not purchase it, right? You list it. You don't need it, then you can easily deprovision it, meaning you can stop using it so you don't have to pay for it, right? So this actually addresses some of the opportunities that we have through the Microsoft Azure platform. Now, the different scenarios or the common migration scenarios that I've seen, or some of the reasons why people would want to move to cloud include the built-in Azure security, meaning people still want to use what they currently have on premise, right? But they don't have the necessary security features or appliances to be able to still be functional and secure during the operations. So how do you do that? You migrate your on-premise workload to Azure. At the same time, we're looking at people wanting to have that end-to-end visibility of the complete IT estate that they have. Because if you had listened to Patrick and Kesho, people have different environments running on premise, right? It can be some of them VMware, Hyper-V, firewalls, different applications, Linux, etc. But how do you consolidate that in such a way that you have clear visibility of what's happening across your IT estate, across every single device that you have on premise, right? So with Azure, you can actually do that. At the same time, you heard Kesho talk about how Copycat supports its customers to modernize some of the workloads that they're currently running on premise, right? And they want to integrate some of the advanced features that are currently available on Azure, right? I mean, we look at things like Azure Active Directory, machine learning, AI, and analytics. All these have an effect of what exactly are you running and how can you modernize your application, right? At the same time, database can be a nuisance. So how do you better manage your database? You can move it to cloud, and then you don't have to deal with any of the maintenance issues and administration issues that are actually very, very cumbersome when it comes to database on premise, right? At the same time, you have that capability of being able to filter your network traffic when you have some of the workloads that are running on Azure through different number of key features, key resources. I think some of them, Alfred was mentioning, Azure Monitor, things like network security groups, where you can actually limit accessibility depending on IP address, the network that the incoming traffic coming from a specific area, say office, etc. So all these are different scenarios, right? That different customers, depending on the specific request, will actually try and migrate their workloads to Azure. Now, having said that, I want to point out some of the customer scenarios that have come out with, right, or at least that we've dealt with across different countries in Africa, right before we do the Q&A session. So I know for a fact Copycat has worked with Gulf Energy as a good example for a very resilient backup solution, right? For a number of their servers where they try to best consolidate some of their files, some of their data for a better retention of the data, right? I know we've worked with companies like DKT International in Senegal. We've worked with National Manpower Advisory Council in Zimbabwe, for data center extension. Essentially, they are opting now by slowly moving to cloud, by deploying cloud servers to make sure that going forward, that will be a more preferable way of managing their infrastructure as opposed to buying and procuring equipment and having them placed on premise. And of course, we've deployed similar solutions for backup for Sal International Hospital, with the local partners in Tanzania, which is a very good example. They had issues dealing with imaging tests, things like MRI, X-ray, which creates a lot of data, which they want to retain for a long term, right? To make sure that they have this data accessible whenever they need it, not necessarily now, but maybe 10 years from now. If they need to pull this data, how best can we save it? So we suggested they use Azure Backup, and now I'm glad to say that the customer is happily using the service, right? We've also dealt with Backhaulage Limited in Zambia, okay? For a similar situation, of course, the challenges are different. These are more into logistics operation. Now, obviously, they need a way to consolidate all their data across different locations, different environments. How do you do that? How do you place it in a secure way, in a resilient way? Now, Azure was the answer. Now, last, I just want to address one thing that, after speaking all this, Patrick has spoken about the why, and Copycat have already told us who they are, right? Now, the main question is, how do you start? If it was unclear for anyone, Kesho had already mentioned it, the free assessment is the way to go, right? You do not charge anything. It would give you an idea of what do you currently have and what can you do with what you currently have? How can you develop it? How can you modernize it? And that is where Copycat would come in our partnership with Cloudmania as well as Microsoft. We'd be able to tell the specific customers that this is what you can do with what you currently have in your on-premise environment or anywhere within your IT estate. So with that, I thank you very much. Again, my name is Evans. I think I'll hand over to Shalini for a Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Evans. I think this was very insightful. So I'll open the floor for Q&A. I've seen previously, so we had a question from EF1 actually. So what sort of industries are these who are adopting cloud at a faster rate? Are we looking at a particular segment, or is it?
Shalini, let me answer it. Irfan, we are also reached out to our marketing team and we are figuring it out. But just we will give you a perspective. We were always thinking that BFSI segment is a segment which might not be adopting cloud at a faster rate or Azure, but we have interacted with many banks here based out of Nairobi, and they are adopting Azure and they have already done it. Their core businesses might not be on cloud. It's a hybrid setup, but there are all other workloads. I can give you an example like testing environment, UAT environment, dev test, and other workloads which are not critical for their business. They have been hosting it on cloud, whether it is Azure or any other public cloud provider. So industry wise, we don't have data right now. We are working on that, which are the early adopters. But I can give you a perspective when outside Africa, in India and other locations, BFSI is one of the first adopters of cloud. But in Africa perspective, we are working on that. But we have also interacted with many banks here and FSIs in Nairobi, and they have adopted cloud in some way or the other. So that is there.
Awesome, thank you. So Monday, yes, we will share a copy of the deck after the presentation. Any other questions from the audience today? No questions. So if we don't have any questions, thank you everyone for making time to join Copycat, Cloudmania, and Microsoft today. We appreciate your presence. If you have any questions or if you want to request a demo, our team will be happy to assist you. I'll put in the chat our contact, so you can reach to Keshav, myself, or Evans in the team.
Yes. And just to add, Shalini, those who have attended this webinar, they are eligible for free cloud assessment, and we will do that. I will make a call to them, and then we can figure out when we have to meet them and then understand their IT landscape, and we will do the free cloud assessment, and we will give them a roadmap, a journey, what they can embark on cloud and how it will help them to bring their TCO down. So we will do that activity as well as a part of this giveaway from this webinar.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Copycat. I think that's a very good incentive. So let's get in touch. Please reach out to us and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for thinking it through. Thank you.